So I scientist, technically cultural anthropologist. My background, that's what my background is in policy. I got frustrated a few years ago, several years ago now, with the lack of environmental and resource management issues being they were left out of a lot of foreign policy decisions and domestic policy decisions and decisions of any kind. And I now work with and so fast forward several years, I now do resource management, and I focus on my research and my consulting focuses on resilience and specifically so give you some photos to keep you interested. So what that means when we talk about resilience is actually something that's measurable. It's not just a soft term. You can actually measure levels of resilience. So, for example, this is from one of my research sites. One of the only times I'm actually at the beach. I usually talk to people with tourism, so I'm just going to sit up here and talk to you. Not in a desk all day. So in my research, when you're looking at, I look at the role of tourism in resilience for coastal communities. And what that means is I'm looking at how tourism affects the destination community for where there's tourism. So essentially, is tourism benefiting the locals or hindering, or what parts are benefiting locals, what parts are causing challenges or problems or not benefiting? Does that make sense? On a scale of 1 to 10, how awake are we? Like 2. So with that, there are a few things in my research. I specifically look at, or have looked at, small island developing states, which basically is any kind of tropical island you think of going to when you go on vacation. That said, there's a lot of overlap for these islands and pretty much any coastal community that is a tourism destination. So one of the signs of, we'll start with the negatives because those are easier to talk about a little bit. One of the signs of low resilience is grant dependency. So grant dependency is when it's very prevalent in developing countries where, or any coastal community or any tourism community where tourism is often seen as a tool for development. So you've probably heard that a little bit at some point. Tourism is now the #1 global industry. 1 of 11 jobs worldwide are in tourism. Pretty much every country in the world has a tourism development plan as part of their own domestic economic development plan. Tourism is seen as kind of the solution to resource extraction. So, classic example, instead of cutting down all the trees, we can just get tourists to come and pay and look at them, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? And so there's not a lot of research on what types of tourism or how that model could look, because there's all these different models of tourism for what actually benefits, right? So I'm sure everyone has been on vacation and kind of thought, I don't know if this is really benefiting the community, that sort of thing. So the first one is grant dependency that I look at, that shows up a lot in my research. And that just means that a community becomes dependent on aid, on grants that they receive to develop this tourism. So really often you'll see tourism businesses are given aid money from usually former colonial powers, so from the EU or pretty much any country in the West, to develop tourism or to develop businesses or to develop innovation. And that works as long as that grant money is coming in. And then as soon as the grant money ends, the project dies. And so we kind of look at what's going on there, and essentially what happens is that applying for grants becomes that piece, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a whole field, and I know that's a little boring, but that's a big thing that comes up when looking at tourism destinations in developing countries. The second one that is everywhere, and that you can definitely see in on your own holidays or in your own communities where there's tourism is the technical term is economic leakage. And all that means is how much money that's coming into the community leaves the community. And that's the leak, right? So, for example, if you're staying at a resort, like a beach resort or something like that, is that beach resort owned by somebody outside of the community or outside of the country? So essentially, if you're paying money to that resort, you think you're paying money into that community, but that money's actually leaving and going somewhere else. Does that make sense? So same thing for restaurants, or if you pay money to go on a day trip, and that company is owned and operated outside of the community. So that's one thing that we look at. That's a low measure of resilience, and how you increase that level of resilience is you want more of the money that is spent to that community to stay in the community, to go back into it. So that's where you hear buy local products, stay at local businesses, that sort of thing, is because you want that money to stay. And the third, we can talk about policy stuff now because that's more fun. So just to make sure I'm actually talking about this here. So while I'm bringing this back up, left, one of the positive things that we look at is interconnected industries. So what that means is that we want the primary industries at the very least to benefit each other. So a classic example that you see in sustainable tourism is something like fishermen who also take tourists out on their boats. And then hotel restaurants buying food locally from the fishermen. So it all starts to benefit. So one thing that in one of my communities, which is here, that you see is, and this is in the Caribbean, is one of the quotes that summed it up pretty well by a resident was, when one piece benefits, everybody benefits, right? So you want all the industries to be impacting each other. And so that's where, for example, what you just heard about, where, they work with local craftspeople, so local craftspeople are benefiting. You work with, local landowners. You start to incorporate the entire community so that all these different pieces are benefiting. Does that make sense? And then the next, maybe we'll just stop it there. Because does that give you a good idea? And essentially, what I look at in my work, there's a whole long list of things like the examples I just gave, of things that you can measure to see, to identify where are the low levels of resilience, where are the high levels of resilience. And the whole point of all of that is to go, okay, so how do we increase measures of resilience? How do we reduce dependency on grants? How do we increase, how tourism's positive impact in the community? And the reason you want to do that, why resilience is important, is because the whole, by definition, resilience is the ability to adapt or transform in response to sudden shocks or disturbances to the system. So in my work, that can be anything from a hurricane or a cyclone to political instability, to economic instability, to ecological instability, or if there's say a drought or a wildfire or some kind of natural disaster, or even just an invasive species that it puts the ecosystem off balance, things like that. So you want to make sure that when these disturbances or these shocks happen, that the community is able to adapt or transform itself to adjust to those disturbances. Does that make sense? So yeah, happy to turn it over and then answer any questions now or later if you find me.